Well, good morning from Two Happy Children Farm. I'm doing something a little different today. Most of the time I'm out at the farm showing you what's going on. Today I'm doing some work in the office. Now is a good time to be doing that. And I'm planning my fertilizer plan for 2017. And I'm looking at some of the data from the last year to help me do that. I'm putting this out because I noticed most of the videos on YouTube relating to crop nutrition are mostly a bunch of hype and bullshit. And if I'm not careful, I can be buying everything under the sun. And I have to look at what really works for me. And I also look at what my local university does, as well as some of the universities across the country. Locally here we have Texas A&M to work with, and I'm finding them to be desperately pessimistic for farmers. My local county average for corn is 80 bushels per acre, and I think a lot of that falls at their feet because they've been so pessimistic with their research and really not looking at what's going on for the farmers. Many of the farmers around me are still doing what they were doing 40 years ago, and that's just because they haven't seen any motivation to change. And so anyways, going through that, we know that crop nutrition is a big part of our yield. So I've been following Agphdsoiltest for several years, and 2 years ago I went ahead and started using their Agphdsoiltest application. This is my pH map from one of my fields. It's nice. It comes in a handheld package so you can see what your field looks like. This was taken fall of 2015. I did a grid sample. I think it's every 2.5 acre basis, and you wrap this up with a GPS coordinate. You ship it off to Midwest labs, and you come back with a map of your farm to show you what's going on. This fall I was able to fold this map on top of my yield maps, and I was able to find the parts of my fields that are higher yielding, and those are areas I'm planning to push next year. And then I was able to find the parts of the map that are lower yielding. If you look at this map, my yields really tracked with pH. The higher pH areas are darker blue, and the lower pH are in the red and orange range. Some of these places in my farm I had yielded close to 200 bushels an acre, which was right around my yield target. And then the lower yielding areas were the darker blue, and those happen to also be poorly drained or not drained as well. That blue pocket down at the bottom there is kind of a washed out area that goes into the waterway of the field next to me. It kind of turned into a swamp for a year. Anyways, that area yielded around 120 bushels. So I got to see my yield versus pH and also some of the nutrition in the field. Speaking of the nutrition in the field, this is this little corner field here. You guys can do a pause later and look at this, but the highlights here are it's the soil pH is 8 or 8.1. My phosphorus test is really low in this area, 5s on the Olson, and but then you see the strong bray. I have a lot of phosphorus tied up that I just can't access. So 2 years ago I had just been doing point sampling, and I had loaded up on phosphorus on this field. I put out I think about 150 pounds actual phosphorus. It didn't budge the Olsen number, it just probably went straight into tie-up mode. So this is one field I'm going to need to manage differently. The other thing we know is we have high cation exchange capacity in our field. My potassium numbers are low, and just about every micronutrient here is low. Sulfur, my secondary nutrients are low, and this happened to be the field where we were falling short of our yield target by about 40%. So there's work to be done here. This is my larger field, and some of the highlights here are the areas where the pH is lower. I have a better amount of phosphorus available, 28, 22, and then my micronutrients are more in the low or medium category, so that the soil hasn't been run down quite as much. This is my third year farming it, and then I still have some nitrate available. Again, this was fall 2015 Midwest Labs. You can pause and look at this. So what happened in 2016 is I didn't use these recommendations as much. The first year when I followed the recommendations, or when I came in with a soil recommendation of needing 150 pounds of phosphorus, and I'm finding just because you put the phosphorus out doesn't mean it's available for the plant. But in the second year now, I think I'm starting to see some improvement. This is a no-till field. So then this year I followed up and started doing tissue testing in crop across the whole season. And this is a year where I wanted to figure out which one of these nutrients was short. So if anything, I could cut back on something and then use more of my crop nutrition money for the things that I'm short on. This is from Midwest Labs. Every week you go out on Monday morning around 8 a.m. and you fill a lunch paper bag full of leaves, and at the younger stage you take the whole plant, throw it in a bag and ship it to them. They get it 2 days after I ship it, and then they send me a report. So it's about 9 days after I cut the plants that I get the data back. This first report is V4. So emergence had already happened. This was taken probably March 29th for a planting of February 17th. So about 6 weeks after planting, I got the data back, I sent out the data. So this early snapshot is something you could use to adjust your micronutrients and decide if you need to do a foliar micronutrient spray. This sample data came back before I did my post application for weeds. But still, it's a short plant, so if you wanted to take another pass, you could do it. So some of the highlights are on the upper sample is my higher pH soil. The lower sample is the pH around 6.8. So I wanted to track those two parts of the farm to see how the nutrition was getting pulled in. You see already in this early sample I'm low in magnesium, and some of my micronutrients are low, and so I just wanted to see if how that was gonna play out through the year. And this would be when the soil is coldest and the plants are the youngest. So not a lot has happened yet. So then we move on to I did a sample every week for 8 weeks. I'm just skipping to the middle of the year here. So again, we have the high line is a 8.1 pH. The lower one is a 6.5. Here's where I started to see a deficiency in everything. We had just had a big 8-inch rain over the last 10 days, and for this tissue test, everything was coming up short because the soil was waterlogged and things weren't moving very well. So that's why I assign a lot of this shortage on the water movement and being really wet. Both of these parts of the field are probably, I think, fairly well drained, but nevertheless, probably for about 48 hours, the soil was saturated. One of the things I've done different this year compared to the first year is all of my nitrogen has been protected with Agphdsoiltest Plus. And again, when I got on the phone with the Texas A&M guys, they were just swearing up and down that that was snake oil, that it would not give me anything back on my investment, and they don't even bother looking at it because they've written it off already. And that's the problem, they haven't even looked at it. So all they would tell me was, I have heavy soil, so I'm not going to get any leaching. But they never know what happens when your soil's saturated for a week, because they've never bothered checking the nitrate levels for a week. And last 2 years we've had these flooding rains in April and May, which is May is our tasseling season. Like mid-May we tassel. So you can understand, if you have saturated soil in April and May, you're really going to kill your yields if the nitrogen just denitrifies. So again, A&M was completely unhelpful in that regard. But this year I went ahead and invested $20 an acre on my own, and I figured I'm going to protect the nitrogen for God's sake, and this is not going to be the year I'm nitrogen limited. And quite noticeably, the fields around me, we're putting out 100 units at planting, and then another 30 at planting, and then 100 units at pre-plant. Those fields were completely burned up with like 3 or 4 foot tall corn, maybe getting 40 bushels per acre, and then on the best spots they were getting 60. The plants had been starving since mid-April, so that's 4 weeks before tassel. They'd been totally out of nitrogen, which I guess is what A&M wants you to do, and it's not working. So our field here, I'm pretty happy at this point with my nitrogen levels, even though I've had all the rain, and the investment I made on Agphdsoiltest. I think it saved me about 45 bushels of corn per acre with that $20 investment. Again, I'm looking at my micronutrients as well. And then the final numbers came in the last week of May. Let's see. So this would be the last week of May, or my last sampling. We're at R1. So this is where you really want to see how things worked, and this shows me my high pH soils, I'm low on potassium. My normal soils, I'm pretty good all the way across the board. So my plan this year is I'm going to increase my potassium and check out these micronutrients during the early test. I might come back and do a foliar. This is my soil sample on the best part of my fields. So I hope this helped out a little bit, and just what we're doing in the winter, trying to make a plan for a better year next year. Thank you.